welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. I am Rick. As always, I am joined by Paula.
Hello.
And I'm also joined by Alex.
Hello.
And this week, as always, we're going to talk about, well, not as always, because we're going to talk about what I've beaten. We're not going to talk about retirements because no one's got any of those. We're going to talk about what we're playing. We've all got, to be fair, lots on the go. That's where the bulk of our efforts are going. And that includes this week's topic, which is 3 additional games we all played as part of the Steam Next Fest. If you listened last week, you'd have heard me very briefly shout that bit out. So we've got 3 games. We're going to talk about those. And we're going to finish off with the last game of the first game week of the new session of the latest version of How Long to Beat The Game. That was perfect. I feel like it's always either amazing or shit. Like when I was editing last week's, like Paula started when me and Alex finished, but this time, perfection, all on point, which is what we like to hear. So let's not bury the lead. Let's get straight into it. I've got 4 completions this week, and that sounds like a lot, but we've all been busy, and actually I probably only put at most a couple of hours into each of those completions. It's a couple of small games and one big game that I just sort of boxed off. So the first game I beat was Dead Space, particularly the mobile version made by Monkey Studios about a decade ago. As I said last week, this did recently get a port to Vita. They found a way to wrap the Xperia Play version of that game to make it work. And it is infinitely better with controller support. This was a replay for me. So maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, I played this on my old iPod Touch, thinking, never going to be able to play this again if I don't play it and beat it now, while that thing still works. And then lo and behold, there's a port. I should say, Alex, I don't know if it's of interest to you, there was a Mass Effect spin-off by the same studio in the same engine called Mass Effect Infiltrator, and that similarly got a port.
I played the shit out of that. Trust me, I played the shit out of that.
You can play it all over again with Vita controls, should you so choose.
But I think Infiltrator, a big part of it though, is that like it was like tied into Mass Effect 3 and into your like Galaxy,
which obviously isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah. So like, there's no. I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's this Dead Space one sounds like there's more of a reason to play it now. But Infiltrator, I would be sort of like, I don't know. I think you have to love Mass Effect to want to play that one now, and I do, but there's no real point.
And I think by contrast, and I think you're probably right in this, because I did play the tutorial of Infiltrator and thought this doesn't necessarily speak to me as is. With Dead Space on mobile, it very much works as its own thing. Like it's got a particular story that bridges the gap between 1 and 2, but it works as a little self-contained sort of narrative. It does everything that the main game did as well. You've got your kinesis. It does the minimal HUD thing, and it's quite impressive that it did that on mobile. So it was like the left screen, right screen, move and aim situation. There were UI elements sort of built into the world. So again, your health bar is the back of your spine. There's a little sort of shoulder pad button for your stasis. It's all very, very cleverly done. And it plays, like obviously it doesn't play like Dead Space did on PS3, but it's remarkable how close it is. And again, there's a certain degree of like linear pathing because it's a mobile game from 2011 or 2012. You know, it's a mobile game from when mobiles were only just becoming smart. And I think with that context, it's remarkable again that it matches the environmental design of the world and everything. It even has 0G, like it's exactly once, but it has it. No, that's not true. Twice, because there's an outside section. There's twice when it does the 0G thing, which is twice more than it really needed to, but it ticks all of the boxes. It's also not mercifully, that's not the right word. It's a very appropriate length for what it does. I think if it padded itself out and tried to get to the 10-hour mark, it would be really, really tedious and it would be hard to recommend at all. But the game, on a second playthrough, again, roughly knowing what I was doing, clocked in at about 2.5 hours. I don't think it would take anyone more than 4, even if this is your first ever Dead Space thing. And I think it's really, really worth experiencing if you happen to have it on an old device, or if you have a Vita that is hacked and you're willing to jump through a couple of small hoops to appropriately sort of obtain the files and get everything set up. It is a really, really good time. And and a lovely time to play it when I can't play the new remake because I don't have a PS5 or a sufficiently capable PC.
Yeah, that one definitely needs a good PC.
There's quite a few games that are actually finally starting to come out for next gen, and it's one of those where when I get a rig that's powerful enough, or when I get a next gen console, like the new Dead Space is absolutely on the list of things that I will be picking up to play.
Yeah, it should be.
So that's exciting. Speaking of PC, that's where my next completion happened, and this is a game called Donut County.
Nice.
Have either of you played this? I feel like one or both of you might have done. You have Paula?
Yeah.
Donut County?
I haven't, but I know Alex has.
Yeah, I did a game on Game Pass there.
And I think it's the perfect Game Pass game. Like it's a 90-minute tight, comical, goofy experience. It's also on mobile, and I think for the right price on mobile, it probably works very well as well. I played this with my girlfriend next to me. She didn't want to play, but it's like still entertaining enough to watch your donut sort of Katamari Damacy, all of the environment around it into the sinkhole. There's fun little moments like the one where you're getting chickens and there's a couple of them like on platforms and you swallow a snake and the snake's tail's sticking up and then you use the tail to knock the chickens off their perches. Or my personal favorite, the one where you swallow two rabbits and the rabbits start doing the stereotypical rabbit thing in the hole. And because you're getting more things in the hole's just expanding and there's like love hearts coming out the hole. It's got a really good sense of humor. I mean, the baffling part for me is that Ben Esposito went from doing this to, as part of Angel Matrix, doing Neon White. It's such a contrast in terms of games. But Donut County's great. Like it's just 10 out of 10 like Game of the Year masterpiece. And I think it just about gets itself finished before it might start to wear thin. It has a few ideas, but there is only so much you can do with.
I mean, it's of the same genre as Rain on Your Parade, right? Like they're like meme games, and they're very good. Like they have enough mechanics that are strong enough that like they're fun enough. But you're right, like they stay just as long as they need to.
and I think I would push back on that a little bit because I actually think Rain on Your Parade did a lot more to change up the formula over its runtime. Rain on Your Parade's a little bit longer, and I think it has DLC that makes it longer again. I also think the quality and the quantity is there to justify it. I think if Donut County were any longer, it would be pushing away from that. I also think Donut County does less to change things up. Like your goal is the same in almost every level, which is swallow all of the things. Whereas on Rain on Your Parade, you'll have mission-specific objectives, find a certain thing on the map. One that sticks out in my mind is one where it's like a winter level and you rain on a road to make it icy so that a car crashes into a lake. And there's lots of little creative things that it does far more than Donut County does. They're both really, really good.
I played them almost at the same time.
Absolutely worth playing.
So I think that's why for me, I didn't really, like, I don't know. They felt exactly the same to me. Like, I didn't really... Like, I'll be honest.
The memory almost homogenizes.
Yeah, like I like what you're saying sounds totally like I'm like, yeah, I totally buy that. But at least for me at least, there's no remarkable difference between how these games feel.
That's fair.
If you play them right next to each other, I'll just say they're extremely good companion games, right? That's sort of how I feel on them. Like I feel like they're games where I'm like, if you play both of these, you kind of they're exactly what they say they are, which I actually think is a compliment for these kind of games where it's like they're not trying to be anything else. They're just like, this is exactly what this game is. Have fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a better way to say that. I might need to roll that around in my head, but I think you're absolutely spot on. Yeah. And they are both great. So, one I might think one's better, one's plus. They're both.
Although I don't know if
I think Rain on Your Parade's gone. Rain on Your Parade's gone because the reason I played that recently was because it was coming off.
Okay.
Donut County, I think if it isn't off, it might be on its way off. Certainly, if not now, by the time that we talk about it, I'm going to double check.
Yeah, and those small games tend to come back too. So they usually leave after their kind of term is up, and then I've noticed that a lot of them have come back.
That's fair enough. Yeah, Donut County's off Game Pass. If it was on there, it's not anymore.
Yeah, it was on there at one point, but
that's fair enough.
It has sailed.
You can get it cheap. I only paid a couple of pounds on Steam. I imagine similar on mobile. It's a fun one for mobile, I imagine, as well, because you're literally just moving the hole around the environment. Like your finger might get in the way a little bit, but I think it's short levels. It's very appropriate to the experience that way. I also like the end credits before I move on from this one. Without spoiling what little story there is, the end credits are both very unique. All three things. They're very unique, they're player controlled, and they tie into a central concept in the game's story, which was a lot of fun at the end of that game. Next one, this is one that I've been chipping away at for a long time. Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. I finally beat it, and I have thoughts which kind of boil down to it's fine if dated. Sorry, Paula, go ahead.
I said, woo, finally.
Now I can focus on FF7 Remake eventually. It's the game is very, very clearly stuck in the 90s in some certain aspects, which makes it all the more disappointing that the recent re-release on PS5 is basically a straight port of the PSP version, which was itself more or less a straight port of the PlayStation version. There are lots of redundant stats. There are lots of confusing menus. There are lots of hidden systems and mechanics that are important to getting everything out of the game or getting the most out of the game. If anyone's listening to this and wants to play the game, I think there's enough to warrant playing it. Absolutely play it with a guide. If I haven't mentioned it before, on the Internet Archive, they have a copy both of the original PS1 guide and of the Brady Games guide that they released for PSP to coincide with that version, which is the one I used. Particularly if you want to get the A ending, which is the proper ending, the arcane hoops and requirements you have to jump through and meet, there is no way you would know unless you followed a guide. And as much as I enjoyed the game, I would not want to play it a second time to experience the proper ending. It requires you to treat the game in a very particular way, trigger certain events at certain times with no margin for error in certain respects. And the ending to the game is not super satisfying, I have to say. The weird thing with the narrative of this title is that it kind of starts and ends and sort of nothing happens in the middle. And what I mean by that is that the concept of the game is that Ragnarok is approaching. It's very much a Norse mythology. And you, the Valkyrie, the most dominant sort of psyche of the Valkyrie is Lenneth, are sent to Earth or to Midgard to recruit, train, and send up Einherjar, i.e. warriors, to fight in Ragnarok for the gods. So that's your kickoff. Like, there's a very clear through line as to why you're doing what you're doing. And at the end of each chapter, you get an update on how the battle's going, roughly. You get to see what each of your individual troops have done, how they fared, and you're given requirements each time based on what kind of warriors they need for the fight in Asgard. Those requirements don't change. They're not like procedurally generated. They're baked in.
Okay, I'm seeing where the problems come in here. So essentially, the big, large thing that you're supposed to be aiding, you never fight in, do you? It's just kind of happen.
And also, depending on the ending, it is entirely redundant for reasons that I will not spoil. Now, that sounds really bad, and in some ways it is. However, the game's not really about that. The game is about these miniature tragedies, because obviously any Einherjar you recruit is someone who has died. So when you recruit someone, there's a mechanic called spiritual concentration. So this part is randomized in terms of the order you receive them. Each of the game's 8 chapters has a predetermined number of turns. You can spend one of those turns essentially listening out for people's cries for help or for things going on in the world, and that will guide you to a dungeon or a scene event that will then trigger someone being recruited to your party. And those recruitment events are essentially sort of 2 to 10 minute cutscenes talking through the tragedy that leads an individual up to their end. And a lot of them are interconnected. There's quite a few characters whose relationships you see over the course of recruiting, some or all of them, at different points of the story. And it is their tales that are what make this game worth experiencing. Primarily followed very, very closely by a really excellent and even today relatively novel combat system. Those vignettes are tragic, gripping, mixed bag on the voice acting, but generally quite well written and well done. And they were the part that I relished the most. As I say, the other thing that's really cool about this game is the battle system. It is one that's shared by the game's sequel, some of them. A couple of other games have stolen the broad concept, games like Indivisible, Exist Archive, probably a couple of others I'm not aware of. The concept is you have 4 characters in your party. Each one of them is assigned to a face button. And with certain exceptions that you do through a regular sort of RPG menu, your combat is conducted by coordinating those characters to attack with timed button presses. It's a system with a great degree of flexibility, and you are incentivized to use it to its fullest. One, because juggling enemies will give crystals that give you more experience or quicker access to super abilities. And also, if you can get a hit gauge to 100 by coordinating those most effectively, you can use super attacks, what are called Purify Weird Souls. Now, they can get a little bit tedious to watch because there's no way of skipping those. And particularly towards the back end of the game, you will need those to deal sufficient damage to get through those battles. But it's a system that's rich in complexity, gives you a lot of ways to contend with it. And because each run has a randomized sort of rough order that you get the characters, and every character is viable, there is a lot of scope for you to want to, and to a certain extent need to, experiment. And that's further colored by the fact that to get to the end of the game without getting a game over, you have to be sending some of those characters up to Valhalla. And to send them up and not have them rejected, they have to be meeting certain requirements of a sufficient level, properly equipped. So there's this real balancing act throughout the game that makes it, even in the absence of a proper narrative, makes it engaging from moment to moment. You can sort of cheese it. There's a big chunk in the middle of my playthrough where a certain mage in combination with a certain special item basically broke the combat. But then as the curve sort of caught up with me, that resolved itself. And that's a quirk of my particular playthrough. There's a lot to like here. And I think if you're listening to this and you're willing to follow a guide to a certain extent, you're willing to put up with some of the quirks of the menu setup, if you are willing to push through some of those, what's the word I'm looking for? Lacks of quality of life, for want of a better term. Quirks, I suppose, works, but it's more the absence of things that in games since have made those aspects of RPGs much nicer to interact with. There is a really, really worthwhile experience to be had here. And this is one that's been sat on my shelf for a long time. So I am very glad that I powered through and played it. And I enjoyed my playthrough, and I'm glad I completed it. I wish the game ended a little bit better. I wish the overarching narrative was a bit stronger, maybe a little bit more tied in. But the package as a whole, I had a good to great time with. And there was a good chunk at the beginning there where I almost dropped it. So very glad I didn't, all things considered. And then finally, from like a 30-hour RPG to a 30-minute light gun shooter, my last game of completions this week is Ghost Squad for the Nintendo Wii. This is an arcade game that was ported, compatible with Zapper, doesn't have to be, but it's literally 3 missions. Now, there are branching paths in those missions, so there is, on paper, a large degree of replayability, but in practice, I've played the game. I don't personally want to play it again, and for me, as I sit here now in 2023, that is fine because I paid a couple of pounds for the disc. I already had the Zapper. I already had the Wii. I just wanted a little palette cleanser, and that's exactly what I got. I think if I put down, 20, 30 pounds on this when it released, I would have maybe been a bit miffed. But for the right kind of audience, I think even then it probably made some sense. It is good light gun shooting, it has to be said. The Wii's not always perfect for those kinds of games because the IR tracking doesn't perfectly mimic like a proper light gun setup. They do give you an extra sort of calibration layer that helps a little bit. And that does make a bit of a difference versus other ones I've played. And there's a degree of variety in it as well. It's not just shoot, 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 shoot. There'll be sections where you're rescuing hostages. There'll be sniping sections. There is a really cool section in the first mission where you have to take down a helicopter with a lock-on missile, and that involves you retaining a track on the target long enough that you can then press the action button to release the missile, and doing that a few times. Unlimited continues. It doesn't do the House of the Dead thing where you don't get that until you sort of fulfill other requirements. You just get that out of the box. And there are some party modes, although I didn't engage them. There is a degree of extra content there. So I had a great time with this one. I really enjoyed a little jump through it. The game has its limitations, but they didn't matter to me for my purposes. Anything you guys want to touch on any of those, or should we just power straight on through?
I think we can keep going. I got nothing there.
That's fair enough. Oh, sorry, go on, Paula.
Nothing there.
Fair enough. Is there a good segue? There isn't. Alex, go ahead. Tell us what you've been playing.
Sure. I don't know why I have Gears of War Ultimate Edition here. We're not really playing it anymore. We might play it more. I don't know. My life's crazy right now. Like, I was telling them before we started, I have like 3 jobs at this point because I'm like teaching full time in a high school right now because of a medical leave, and then I teach in the evenings and stuff. So I'm just like, when Susie and I have time for each other, we are basically just eating food or cuddling. That's the 2 things at this point, because we don't have time for games right now. But I have actually been playing quite a bit because I have a really long commute. So I've been playing a lot of Switch stuff, and I've been kind of doubling up on Mario, Rabbids, Spark of Hope, and Pokemon Scarlet. I've kind of been swapping back and forth because I actually find that maybe, I don't know, Mario, Rabbids, and Hope, I'm actually finding that I get a little tired of it, and I need breaks from it. It's really good, but it is also just more of the same, right? And so, like, I don't like, like the way that game's set up, right? Like, it's just like you go to a place, you fight some stuff, you keep going, you fight some stuff, you keep going, and it's great. It's just that I'm a little, I'm just like, I just find myself getting a little tired of the combat kind of flow. And so I need little breaks. And so actually Pokemon Scarlet has kind of been perfect for that. I'm almost finished Rabbids of Hope, I think. And it's interesting because there's a lot that you can do in this game. Like, they have really packed it full of stuff to do. So what?
Mario Sparks Rabbids of Hope. It's just me. I wasn't going to say anything. But
oh, all right. It's just you. Okay. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening here.
I've almost finished Rabbids of Hope, and it just amused me.
Okay.
I've successfully derailed the podcast.
Rick's brain
Fantastic.
is going places. Yeah. Anyway, so, I'm enjoying it, right? Like, it is fun. There is a lot that you can dig into if you want. I really like completed all of the first world because I was like really having a good time, which maybe wasn't the right idea because then I was kind of getting a little tired of the combat system. So I'm like, oh shoot, I might have overloaded myself on this. It does get actually much more difficult because they really do start to introduce complexity to the enemies. So in the one that I'm in now, there is actually a lot more strategy that you need to do. I think maybe my only complaint with the game is just that there's no real reason to experiment with the different characters that you get, especially because one of the characters is a healer, right? And like in this game, a healer is super important because otherwise you have to use items all the time, which are just really slow. So like you're probably going to be using Rabid Peach, like that's the character you're likely going to use all the time because she possesses a healing like power, right?
And that was a problem in the first game as well, it's worth saying.
Yeah, and it's the only way to heal in game, and there's no way to revive people, right? So if a character dies, they're just dead. So like until that match is over. And so it's like, well, you kind of need to have her because just on the off chance that one of your characters die, like, uh-oh. And then, I don't know, like, there's some really cool characters you meet along the way, but when you meet them, it's like, okay, you might want to try to use them a little bit, but then you realize, like, you've developed such strategies with the characters you've had the whole time that you don't actually really want to experiment too much with the new characters, because you're like, well, now I'm going to have to relearn all these kind of mechanics and the skills that they have, and things are actually getting more challenging. So I actually do need to know how to use my team properly, right? So it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's in that weird position where it's like, okay, it's cool that you're giving me all these characters to play with, but like, I don't have, I can't use them because I don't know how they're going to work together. And I really need to make sure that I know exactly how my teams work, so that I can actually beat these new challenges. So it's my one kind of gripe with the game that I think the first game had issues with too. And I don't really know how to solve it. Like, they do have some missions where you get to use, like, you're only allowed to use certain characters. And I actually really like that. And I think, honestly, and I know why they didn't do this, because they want you to have like a level of choice with it. But because everybody levels up, like, there's no, like, you don't have to use certain characters and whatnot. It would actually, I think, be more fun if they restricted your character use a little more. And I think it's kind of dumb that they're restricted to 3 characters, because there are a number of fights where you're allowed to have 4. And I kind of just wish they would have made it so that you could have 4 units, because it's a lot more fun and engaging when you have 4 of them. I think part of it is because the balancing would be tough and they'd have to make bigger levels and stuff. But it's just more fun like that, because you get to use more of your characters and they can like synergize with each other a little bit more. Whereas right now they're just kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't feel as satisfying at the moment. So I'm a little torn on the game right now. I think the first one might have been a bit better. I think this one's good, but maybe the first one was a little more novel, and so once you play this new one, you're just kind of like, oh, all right, well, this is more of kind of the same, and it's fun and all that, but I'm not really sure I'm like feeling it big time. Plus, I think the first one was funnier. I don't know what it is. It's just like this one doesn't really seem to have actually that much of a story, and what it does have, it's fine. Like, I've chuckled a few times, but I remember actually finding the first game like pretty funny. Like, it was right. Like,
I'm nodding, which doesn't work
Yeah.
for podcasts.
Yeah.
I agree.
and maybe it helps too, because like there was like even more kind of like Mario stuff, because like you were in the Mushroom Kingdom and everything, and like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little torn on this one. For some reason, it's not clicking with me, and I don't know what it is. If it's just like, is it just me? Am I like, have I changed at this point? Like, or is there actually something kind of fundamentally different about this one? And I don't really have an answer right now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like,
Mm.
there's just something that's not fully clicking with me. But I am gonna beat it, because it's not like, obviously the mechanics and like the thoughtfulness of the design is still there, and it's still very good. I'm just a little like, I don't know. And there's a lot of like mission types that repeat. So there's like some that are on every single planet that you go to. And I don't know why, but that just does make it makes the game feel smaller in a way, because you're like, oh, this is the same thing. So you're just going to do this on every single planet. It's like, okay. I don't know if I like that. So anyway, I started going really in depth with it, and now I'm just kind of slowly going through. I've played a lot more of Pokemon Scarlet. Still the absolute most ass-looking game I've played in years. I took a screenshot because of how fucking bad a shot looked. Like, the grass is just like, it's literally, oh my god, man. It's like, in a match, it's just these like wisps, and like the textures looked so fucking shit. Like, man, let me put it this way. Some of the one-person developed indie games we've played in the itch.io games looks better than this game. And I'm like, unacceptable. So anyway, we went on that rant last week, but oh dude, I've had some hilarious little like glitches and stuff though. Like Pokemon that suddenly zoom really fast. And like I've had a few Pokemon who just like disappear into the ground while I'm fighting them. And they did not use dig. So they're just like sitting there and they're gone. And I'm like, where'd they go? And I'll hit it and I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, the open world nature does work really nicely. It's very fun. Like, I'm still having a fun time. Some of the new Pokemon I actually quite like the new Pokemon they've made this go around. I think I think they're actually some like decent designs. It's often a really like really goddamn mixed bag when it comes to new Pokemon designs. But I have to say that
Yeah.
this time around, I actually feel like the new designs, like when I see them, I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty cool looking. Um, and so yeah, so far so good there. I do think like the gameplay experience is quite good. It's fast, it's quick. I like the idea of like the TM machines. That's nice. Seeing the Pokemon on the world map feels good. It's the first Pokemon game in a really long time for me that actually reminds me a bit of what it was like playing the first Pokemon. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean that in every single sense, in the sense that it's also a broken piece of mess. And it genuinely is almost just like the first one. It barely functions, um, but it's really fun. And that to me is what kind of reminds me of that first one. And also exploring the world, there actually feels like there's more of an exploration of the world. Like Pokemon Sword and Shield, it didn't feel like you explored anything. It was like, here's a couple cities.
Yeah.
There's this one big space in the middle that you can go fuck off in if you want, jackass. You don't have to do anything with it, but go have fun. And you were like, okay. And then it was like, do you have friends? No. Well, then you can't play any of the content in here. And it's like, oh. And then this time, at least that shit is like more kind of separate. But the world here, like actually exploring it and going from route to route to the different cities, actually feels like you are going into the wild in a way that reminds me of the first game a lot. Because in that first game, you didn't really know where you were going, right? Because it's like that first time you're playing it, you're like, where am I going to end up next? What's going to happen? And so you had to really like go through and explore. And so to me, this is the one that feels closest to that kind of vision. Um, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at in that sense. One thing that's a little shite is that the towns, as cool as they are very empty. They're just kind of nothing. You
Yeah.
know? There's nothing happening in them, which, like, to be fair, Pokemon games have never really, but I don't know. Maybe it was just because I was a kid, but like the Pokemon towns in the first games, they felt kind of alive, you know? Like there was a lot of shit you could go into houses and talk to people. Um a lot of the towns had like something in them, right? Like, you know, they had the Safari Zone or they had like big shopping malls or they had the SSN or they had, you know what I mean? Like they all had like they had something really big in them. Whereas these ones it's just like there's a gym, right? Um,
Yeah.
and that's
The
sort of
only
it.
point of interest is the gym.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's actually interesting that you can go to. And it makes it feel really small and like unlived in. And I don't know. I I'm quite disappointed by that because they've created a really interesting world that you can go through and like the main hub city is pretty cool. It has lots of stuff that you can go do in. But it makes you wonder, like, why would you? And I don't know. Maybe they're like, well, because you know you don't want people, you want people to be able to get everything in one place. But at the same time, they've made traveling so much easier, right? Like you don't have to fly; they just have flying taxis, so you can just fast travel wherever you want. So you don't need HM slaves or anything. Which actually, speaking of, that is a really good change that they've made, where you have that Pokemon, legendary Pokemon that you're given at the start, who is your HM slave, right? Like it's the one
Yeah.
that gets you all over the place, and they actually have a very intelligent way of leveling that character up and like increasing their abilities. I actually like that it's tied to one of the paths. I thought that was pretty cool. They don't tell you that either, so you have to kind of find that out for yourself. That you're like, oh, the way I make this character better is if I play the game. Okay, that's a smart way of doing it. So I like that. I've actually lost a few matches because you can go and you can find places that are too strong for you, which is what I've always wanted in a Pokemon game. Because it's like fucking when you talk about fucking Elden Ring, it's like basically that shit where like I'll go to something and I'm like, shit, I can't beat this thing. It's too strong. And instead of just having to, because in old Pokemon games, if you happen to kind of, you know, speed your way through and get to an area, you would just get your ass kicked, right? Um, so yeah, like in that moment, what was I saying? Oh yeah, when you face off something, you're like, okay, well, I'll just go try to fight some Titan Pokemon, or because I basically got beat by one of the like Team Star bases or something. One of their, which they actually have some cool like boss Pokemon fights where like they have a big extra huge large bar, and I think that's pretty cool. Although one of them has a really stupid Pokemon that is a car, which I was like, are you for real? This is the Pokemon now? They're just cars? You're
I
like,
mean, it is the engine, but yeah, it looks like it is the car.
yeah, it's dumb. But I'm like, whatever the reason, it's dumb. But whatever. I was like, it's fun, I guess. So anyway, I just I don't know. I'm having a good time with it. I'm gonna beat it for sure. Um, I've been leveling up my Pokemon and stuff, and yeah, I don't know. This game's a fucking paradox, man. Like I said before, it looks like ass.
I
It
see what you did there.
functions like ass. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, oh yeah, and the paradox shit. I've only had a bit of those, but anyway, yeah, they're coming. Weird time shit going on. But anyway, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. You know, like I think it unlocks a childish joy that Pokemon I don't think has unlocked in a long time. Arceus was pretty fun and was interesting, but like it didn't feel like special. It felt like, oh, this is a neat take on this. It didn't feel like that childhood joy that Pokemon gives. This one gives that. So anyway, those are the two Switch games that I've been playing. They're my commute games. So I just sit down and play these all ride. Then I played more of Hi-Fi Rush. Still love it. Haven't played like a ton more, but it's phenomenal. Like it's really fucking good. I have a great time with it. But I actually sat down and I've played a bunch more of Dead Space. So I'm probably a quarter to a third of the way through it. I'm basically in chapter 4, and I think there's 12 chapters. Man, I don't remember shit from this game. And like, so I don't know if there's stuff that they're changing or not, because I straight up remember absolutely nothing. That's how long it's been since I played it. And I'm really glad I don't remember anything, because I'm having a goddamn blast with this thing. Like, it is so fucking good, man. Oh my God, the sound.
It's not quite beat for beat, but it's close. I mean, Digital Foundry did a
Yeah.
really good video on it. There's certain elements they've changed around. So when they made it the first time, there wasn't like a unified schematic of the USS Ishimura or US, whichever it's called. But what they've done is to make it make a bit more sense. They've slightly rejigged the levels so that it's all an actual world this time, and it all fits on top of each other. And there's been consideration to how the maps all sort of interlock. But more or less, beat for beat, everything else is there. It's still designed to be single shot. I've completely derailed you. It's just the Rick derailment episode.
That's good.
So apologies. Please do go ahead. And if anyone wants to sort of see what's changed, like you could still play the 2013 one and have broadly the same experience, but this is the kind of remake that completely supersedes the original.
They've added side missions, I think, right? Because I don't think there were side missions in the first one.
I don't remember that part of the video. If they did mention it, I don't remember that bit.
Maybe there were in the original. I don't remember there being some in the original, but the ones that they have here, at least, they do feel good. Because there's like one where you're like learning more about your wife, which might have been in it. But anyway, I've unlocked a couple side missions that I'm really enjoying right now, because I can go back throughout the world and like explore a bit. And I have definitely noticed that the world feels extremely well realized. Like the Ishimura does actually feel like logical as you're going around, and like you will notice that when you like go down a level, it's like, okay, well, if there was a room right above this room, there's often another room there too, because like obviously it would have been designed that way. And so yeah, what I like, that makes sense to me what you're mentioning, because it does feel like a truly lived in space. And it's, oh man, dude, it's so good. It's so fucking good. Like, it's spooky as hell as usual. It's hard as nails at times too. Like, those fucking dudes, they really hit you. And God, the weapons feel so good. Like, I've always loved this game because there's really only one weapon that's like kind of traditional, which is like the pulse rifle. And then you got like the fucking bolt cutter with your fucking saw blade that's like your plasma cutter, and your fucking flamethrower and shit. And like, oh my God, man, like, oh, it's so good. And Zero G is so good now. You're fucking flying through the sky, like you feel. Oh, it's really good.
I heard they'd fix Zero G, yeah.
Oh, Zero G feels like you're fucking Superman. You're just like soaring through the air. And like the buttons that you have are really good, because you have orient buttons where you can just like tilt yourself through, because it actually feels like you're flying through space, right? Without any form of, because that's something that actually, this is going to be a tangent for a second here, but it's a fun tangent. So like one of the things I love about The Expanse is that they talk about how the biggest difficulty with space is that there is no horizon to orient yourself with. Right? So like something that we take for granted as human beings is that on Earth, we always feel like we know where up is because we see the horizon and we can see like the sky, etc. So like we, despite being on, right, like a moving planet, we always know where we are on that moving planet. But the issue is that if you're in space, you have no fucking clue where you are, right? Because there is no up anymore. And so, for instance, like in that show, if somebody lives in space and they go to Earth, they get really sick when they get there. Also because of gravity, but then more importantly because suddenly there's a horizon and it like really fucks with someone who's never had a horizon, right? As the same way out there. So the issue with doing flying or 0G is that the minute that you jump up, you're not like being held by gravity. So like technically Isaac could just go, right? And like he can spin all the way around. So they have a good button that can orient you again, like to like, horizon level, but then you can also just press RB and LB to just kind of like twist your guy around and then just shoot him through the air. And it works really, really well because it feels like, I don't know, I never felt like super confused as to where I was because I could just easily fix myself and go through. But then I could zoom all over the place. And like fighting in 0G is really fun. You'll just have these fucking guys just going woof at you and you're like, trying to like back up and shit. It's great.
That must have been completely redone then, because my memory of 0G, and it's the same in the mobile port, is that you sort of do a straight line jump from a point where you're at to a point where you can go.
You can just fly in this one. It's full flying. Okay. You press RB and then you just let go and then you can go anywhere. Like you can just like full fly wherever you are and it's awesome. Like it feels really good. And you can press the L stick to like boost yourself so you're like soaring through the air.
Right, just like jet thrusters.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, there's fighting in 0G now and like those like there's these creepy ones who crawl on the ground. They're like scorpions with a big old tail, and those things will just
I hate those.
Launch themselves through 0G at you, and so you have to like back up and like smack them and shit. And it's like, and Isaac feels so strong. His like fucking steps is like as he's going along, and like when he crushes shit with his boots, dude, it's like so satisfying to just like fucking crush these creeps heads in until they bust out a pickup. That's when you know they're dead. When they've shot out a pickup, you're like, they're fucking dead for sure. So yeah, the voice acting is great. The new lines are excellent. It feels more like a lived, like it's nice to hear Isaac talking, because I don't think Isaac talked at all in the first one, didn't he?
Correct.
Yeah. And him talking now makes it feel it's, if anyone's worried like, oh, will it be weird? No, it's very nice that he talks because it was weird as fuck that he didn't.
In the original, particularly some of the stuff with the way that story goes towards the end of the first one, it was weird that he was just sort of nodding along. Like,
Yeah, and this one he really does talk.
Yeah.
And it makes him feel like he's part of the team, right? Like I actually feel a little more connected to Daniels and Hammond, who are like kind of the early on ones that you're with, because they're talking to each other, right? And like Isaac's offering advice and like they're like trying to figure things out together. So you're like, yeah, this feels more, because like I don't know why he ever had to be silent anyway. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, why did he have to be silent? It's not like he's not like a stand-in for you, right? He's not like Link. Like he's an actual person.
This is the argument.
Yeah,
and also it's one less thing to do if you're like trying to launch a new IP and trying to make it a bit more.
Anyway, this is like easily the definitive way to play the game now. Like I just, obviously you can go back and play the other, because the original was phenomenally made. Like don't get me wrong. It's just that this is the game that you remember and love perfected, right? It's the Metroid Prime remastered thing. It's a perfect remake of the game. Like that's, I've no notes.
One small tangent just off the back of that. Are either of you planning to play remastered on Switch?
Hate Metroid Prime. I don't want to play this.
Oh,
I don't.
Okay.
I think those games are bad.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a first-person shooter or a third-person shooter?
First person.
It's first person, but it's pretty slow. Might be the kind of thing that you could play without making yourself sick.
It could be a good training wheel game.
I've been avoiding them mainly because of the first-person perspective. Though I've been kind of curious about them.
interesting, because I'm torn, and let us know in the comments down below if you've tried one or the other and you think one or the other is better. But I have on my shelf a copy of the trilogy that they released for Wii, and motion controls. I liked the controls on 3. I didn't play Prime or Prime 2, but I played almost to completion Prime 3 when that first came out, and I, for the sake of £70 over the first 2, buying them again, I'm sort of tempted to just play the trilogy.
Yeah,
But if
the
anyone,
first one is a discount price. It's not full price. It's probably
even
like
so,
£40. Yeah,
which
maybe
is £40 more than
£30,
it would cost me to
yeah.
put the disc in that I already own.
Oh, I
which
would
is
just
the
play the
difference.
disc you own. I think the Wii
That's
games
where
are
I'm leaning.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, the Switch one looks significantly better than that.
Indisputable. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I mean, that could color it. I've also heard that like stick plus gyro is like really good on this, especially if you're into gyro at all. But
I want to be into gyro. I'm not into gyro yet, but I want
me
to
neither.
be.
Yeah, I've heard it's just like, especially on like consoles, it's just like it's the way to do shooters now because it's just so like, yeah. I have to learn how to do it. You know, I've got a pro controller, so
It's another learning curve thing. The one that's always like fascinated me is I watched a video on someone who plays Counter-Strike with
gyro.
they call it they call it snap camera. So the right analog, instead of that moving you in a direction, that is, if you imagine the top of the analog stick as your human's head, and you flick it in a direction, that points you in 360-degree space. And then gyros used to aim the cursor.
Oh, that's smart.
And apparently you can get really fucking good with it, but it's all, like you say, it's all a learning curve versus the literacy that we have of aim with right stick, move with left stick.
Which ultimately is kind of becoming outdated, right? Because it's slow.
To a certain extent, but it's one of those where it's like an accessibility and convincing the masses and like that whole thing. And you're right, it probably is becoming outdated. And I think stick burst gyro is probably the way ahead beyond that. Boy, this was a tangent.
Anyway,
you'll probably see that in the next couple months.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all this to say, Metroid Prime is an overrated piece of garbage.
but Dead Space is great.
It's not garbage. Hold on, before people
This is the gospel
eviscerate
according
me
to
in the
Alex.
comments, when I played those games, I find that game is empty, boring, and slow because it's basically just slowly
That's the
going
point.
around.
It's atmospheric.
Yeah, well, that atmosphere can gargle on my balls because I don't care. Fucking atmosphere. I'm like, yeah, all right. Give me game.
Don't get me in the comics, but also gargle my balls.
Exactly. I don't know, man. Everyone has this fucking like blinders for Metroid, right? Like everyone's just like, Metroid Prime is so amazing, and I was like, there are like a trillion games better than these at this point. Whatever. I don't even care. It's Metroid's like that fucking whatever. Even the 2D Metroids I think are overrated. I just think everyone like has this love affair with 2D Metroid, and with all Metroid is overrated, man. They had great ideas of which many other games perfected. Like they are not the pinnacle of Metroids. All these other games have come that have perfected Metroid's functions. Metroid is just the one that everybody plays because it's made by Nintendo. There's my rant.
I just love how how Alex was like, okay, so before you grab your
now you can
Xbox
eviscerate me in the comments.
Yeah, allow me to rub salt into the wound.
Yes. Well, you all know how
and really nail that point home.
Before you gargle them.
There we go. Now gargle them. Well, the critics can, not these, not our lovely listeners. They're lovely.
Oh,
but no, they all know how I feel about it. I've talked about Metroid with all of them before. I just don't like it. I don't know. I don't like it. Hollow Knight's better. Play Hollow Knight.
Question is, do I play Hollow Knight or Prime first?
You play Hollow Knight first, goddammit.
Play Hollow Knight.
Okay, so follow-up question: how
my adventure?
What? Yeah.
What did you say, Paula? Sorry.
Oh, play Hollow Knight. Accompany me on my adventure on Hollow Knight, which I haven't played in a couple of weeks or so, but still.
When you've played Citizen Sleeper, Paula, I will accept your input.
Okay.
I was like, womp womp.
Okay,
but that might be a nice segue because I think you've told me or us about all of the games you're currently playing, Alex.
Oh, I'm done.
So, okay, Hollow Knight's not on there, Paula, but do you want to tell us about the games that you are actively playing at the moment?
Oh, so I've been playing a bunch of stuff. Mainly one of them, but more on that later. So I got some cravings for Tetris because now Game Boy and Game Boy Advance are available on NSO.
Which
So
when you're done,
I
we
got to
need
play
to talk
some.
about that for a second, but keep going.
We do.
Oh no.
Anyway, go.
Oh, good. So I started playing Tetris, and I forgot how fun this game is because I haven't played it like in so fucking long. Like, yeah, no, I can't even tell you like how old I was when I last played Tetris. So there you go. And I got to level 9 on
Not bad.
on Tetris, like on the first. There's like 2 maps or modes, and they call them like A and B. So I'm just calling them A and B. And I got to level 9 on A, which is probably the best I ever done on Tetris because I used to suck at it. And there's something very addictive about Tetris, and I don't know, it just never gets old, and I love it. Okay, Alex.
Okay, what a load of fucking horseshit that Game Boy and Game Boy Advance releases are. Mother of God. Like, I'm sorry, but they're like, oh, because it's like the expansion pass for the Game Boy Advance ones, right? And you're like, what, like 6 Game Boy Advance games? Like, I'm just like, dude, for the love of God, of all the games to put on, the Game Boy Advance games have to be some of the easiest ones to get on there. Like, holy hell, this drip feed shit, it's like, what, 6 years now since the fucking Switch came out, and you're still drip feeding your online service? Bro, how many years do you think you got left on this fucking game? Like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, now's the time to just drop like 50 fucking Game Boy Advance games and just be like, here you go. At least they're good ones that they put in for the most part. The Game Boy Color ones, I was like, dude, you put Gargoyle's Quest on there, bro? Like, I love
It's
Gargoyle's
supposed to be quite good, to be fair.
It's not. Rick, it was
Oh,
very good in
okay.
the 90s. Trust me.
Okay.
As someone who loves Game Boy games, Gargoyle's Quest, in today's, I think a lot of people are going to load up Gargoyle's Quest and they're going to nope out very fast. I love it, but yeah, it's rough. It's very rough.
I kind of saw the announcement. It's like, okay, that's cool. Shame I already downloaded all the ROMs years ago.
Yeah, it's a little fucking late is what it comes down to. You know what I mean? I was like, you're a little late on this, fellas.
It's kind of hard to care, but then I already own Ghost Trick, and I think I might buy that again. So, like, what do I know?
Oh, yeah, that's different, though. Ghost Trick, everyone should buy. Anyway, I'm tired of Nintendo's bullshit with these games. Like, they're just the slow drip feed of fucking their old console games, and now I'm just already looking at it. It's like they're gonna drip feed these things out, and then in like 3 years they're gonna be gone again.
Yep. It's the perk of having them on a subscription. You don't really own, not that you owned them anyway because of the EULA, but they get to sort of pull it whenever they feel like it.
Exactly.
Which is nice.
Yeah. It's
and
like,
you get to pay for it again and again and again.
Right?
Everyone's a loser.
Everyone's a loser. And they won't bring it back out again, right? Like whatever Switch 2 is, they'll just be like, oh, they're gone now. We'll go drip feed you some
we can't support it again because of the different architecture.
Yeah, right. And I was like, so then why didn't you make it future-proof in the first place?
Anyway, you were telling us
Paula.
about the games you were playing, Paula.
Enough tangents.
Enough tangents for now. And I'm also playing Pokemon Scarlet. As I said, I'm trying to get my competitive team and for Season 2. And right now I'm farming for Terra charts because you need 50 of them to change your Pokemon's Terra type. Sadly, you cannot pass down any Terra types on Pokemon breeding, or I don't think you can. No, you can't.
I was gonna say, don't ask me.
So I've been farming some Steel type Terra rate for a long time. I've also been coaching my boyfriend on competitive Pokemon because he wants to assemble his own team. And there's something interesting because you can, if you have a competitive team, you can put it out like on the internet and people can rent it. So you can rent another person's Pokemon team and try it out before you try to assemble it for yourself. which is very nice because you can see firsthand what the competitive scene is like and see which Pokemon are being used the most, which are probably like the biggest hurdles you're gonna encounter, and then you can plan your team accordingly. And it has been very fun because we've actually spent like a couple hours on 2-on-2 battles and trying to and I was pretty much teaching my boyfriend, okay, this is like the usual move to this Pokemon, so you probably want to use this, so this outspeed this Pokemon on this specific environment, and oh no, that Pelipper has Drizzle, so probably it has Hurricane also, because that if I remember correctly can go through protect barriers, and it hits 100% of the time in rain. So we've been like going back and forth, like trying to win every battle, and it was a very fun evening. So I really liked in the system of fronting a team to see what's up.
I like it. He's the
And
Age of
also,
Empires seer, and you're the Pokemon seer.
yeah, pretty much. Because he coaches me on Age of Empires and I coach him on Pokemon, so
I like it. That's a healthy relationship right there. Got your strengths.
I've also been playing Pokemon Showdown, just tweaking my team before giving it the final tweaks before I assemble it for real, because I really don't want to have to like use what's the name of this herb? I forget, but there's an item that allows you to pass a move from a Pokemon to another Pokemon without going through the breeding process, because it is an egg move. So I really don't want to have to use that item because it is quite expensive. So it is like the most cost-effective way to do it is just going through the usual breeding egg move thingy. So yeah, enough of Pokemon because nobody got the time for that. Oh, I only got 12 Pokemon left on my Pokédex to get the Shiny Charm.
Nice.
No, that's enough of Pokemon. And I also been playing Café Enchanté, and I forget how much I love this game. Like especially the common route, it is so chill. You just see Kotone trying to set up her coffee shop and trying to get out all the permissions, and everyone like trying to help her out. So at least chapters 1, 2, 3 are wholesome and kind of chill. So the real shit is gonna start like really soon whenever I start like running to everyone's words to see where they come from. But so far, so cute. And I think I already said it like on my first playthrough of Café Enchanté, but Kotone is a mood. Like she's the only normal human being like on the cast of Café Enchanté, because even though you have another human there, other humans in there, one of them is kind of kooky. I mean, he's kind of crazy, and the other one is agent for these human and non-human relationships organizations. So they kind of like oversee everything non-human, so they don't make the world explode or something like that. And he's like very far from normal. So I guess in this case, Kotone is like the quote unquote normal character out of this entire cast, and she's like, so I'm gonna say she's a very average girl in a very like not average situation, which makes her even more relatable because she reacts like how a normal human would react, like in the first encounter with the non-humans that come out from a magical door at the cafe. She just hides under a table and treats them as trespassers and threatens them to that she's gonna call the police. Which is like, yeah, that is probably what I would do if there was some stranger in my house. Like, call the police first, ask questions later. So even though she eventually gets used to them, there are still like situations where she's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna go with it. But still, I'm kind of scared. So yeah, I think I've said it, but Klonoa is probably one of my, if not my favorite, otome protagonist like of all time, just because of how she's. And enough of me gushing about Klonoa. The other game that I've been playing, well, Chaos Genoa, I'm still playing. I just haven't gone through enough to actually explain what it is happening. But the other game that I've been playing a lot of is Fire Emblem Engage.
Nice. I'm gonna join you soon.
Yeah, please. So my sister went to the United States, and since games are way cheaper over there, she brought me a bunch of them.
Nice.
So I ordered them through Amazon, and she got a couple of them on GameStop, and Paula is a happy camper now. And one of them is Fire Emblem Engage, and oh my god, this is the traditional Fire Emblem game I was hoping for so long, because let me tell you, school life Fire Emblem Three Houses isn't it? It ain't it for me, Chief. But this Fire Emblem Engage, yeah, this is chef case. Even though the story is kind of meh, the gameplay is God tier Fire Emblem. I love it. So far, I've gone through 6 chapters and one paralogue chapter, which is a side chapter. And I cannot go into as much depth as I would like, because as we speak, my boyfriend is playing it like right now at my side, so I cannot go into spoiler territory. All I can say is that there's a big bad dragon who is awakening, and you need the 12. You need to get 12 rings to stop it. So why do you want these 12 rings? Well, glad you asked, because it is the main mechanic of the game. So instead of in prior Fire Emblems, you had the pair-up mechanic, which, by the way, it is broken, but still, it was a lot of fun. Here you have the engage mechanic, where there's these rings that has like the spirit of a prior lord or main character on the Fire Emblem mythos, and you can summon them to get special abilities. So, for example, I got what's the name of this character? Alfred, who is like one of the lords of Neighbor Kingdom, and they have I have equipped them with the ring that has Sigurd on it. Sigurd being the main character in Genealogy of the Holy War. And the thing is that not only they gain like a lot of movement when you call Sigurd for help, but you also get some of his abilities. So, for example, in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, Sigurd was able to attack and then like retreat somewhere else because he could just move after attacking. So you get that ability here when you do the engage thing with Sigurd. And also you get an attack that lets you like run through an enemy to the slot like next to it or past it, do a lot of damage, and then you continue on your way after killing that enemy. And the other one that I think is a better example because I know the game better is Celica from Fire Emblem Echoes, Trails of Valentia. I am so happy Celica is here. Sorry, I'm fangirling about every character right now. And she has the Seraphim magic on Fire Emblem Echoes, which allows her to kill undead enemies more easily. Like she does like double damage to undead enemies. And also she has what's the name of it? Ability? She has an ability called Warp Ragnarok, where she can teleport and attack an enemy. Which, by the way, you get both of those abilities if you do after doing the engage thing with Celica. And even though you can only use Ragnarok once, it is a move that is so powerful and it's just like surprise attack on the enemies, and I love it. And Seraphim, it is so useful because the thing you'll be fighting the most in this game are bandits and undead.
The two classes.
So Celica's ring is just chef kiss for this kind of mission. And what else? I have a couple of comments over here. First of all, so far the game it is a lot of fun. Gameplay is big traditional Fire Emblem, as I said. It is combat to combat to combat. You do have like a hub world after a while, where you can just buy items and like the usual like consumable items and weapons, and you can forge your weapons over there. And you can buy also you could use your materials to buy cosmetics, but I'm gonna be honest. I could probably be using the materials to get better weapon for my units. But some of those characters had to look very cool on glasses, so I have to get them glasses, even though it does nothing for the combat. Stealth first, combat later. And if you have a strategy, you can fight with a stick and win, I guess. Who needs swords?
Who needs swords when you can see?
Who needs swords when you can see and you look like a total diva?
There you go.
You're stylish, yeah. And sorry, I'm all over the place today, but
it's okay.
I have been having so much fun with this game. And also, I have to say, you can adopt animals like for a little farm that you have on your world and farm ingredients, which, by the way, I only just realized to use those ingredients to make food, which will give you a boost on your next battle. The real reason I'm adopting animals is because I can adopt cats. So I am collecting all the cats in the game.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think we need to have a topic about why does every single game in existence at this point introduce a cooking mechanic? There's so many cooking mechanics in these games. Scarlet has it as well. Like, what's going on? It seems to be out of Japan too.
Gotta eat.
Right? Yeah, all characters. Everyone has to cook. Gather ingredients and go cook. I'm like, I'm not playing Animal Crossing. Leave me alone.
You're gonna feed the groupies after the show.
Yeah, there you go. Eat with them.
I mean,
go ahead.
I just unlock memories of me like saying like Link just woke up after his 100-year slumber to just become a master chef instead of saving Hyrule.
That's basically what he does, right? He's Master Chef Link.
Yep.
Sorry,
definitely. I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, you cannot pet the cat, but you can adopt a cat, which is nice. And also we have a phone with NFC technology, so we can just make our own amiibos, which I did. And I don't have it like at hand right now, but it is an amiibo of Celica, and you can scan amiibos to get like tickets to get like special items inside the game. You can only scan 5 amiibos per day, sadly. Otherwise, you will probably unlock everything in the same day if you do have the amiibos for it, or like if you have the NFC chips, which I have. They only unlock cosmetics, so nothing very important or like game changing. But it's still a nice bonus if you do have the Fire Emblem amiibo, or you have NFC chips. Which, by the way, best investment ever. I do not have to buy a single amiibo to get any specific kind of gear. I just can override it on with my phone and be happy with it. And
that's the way to do
do
it.
not, please do not let the Nintendo ninjas come after me.
Do about it, right? Like the tech is such that if you can replicate the signal, yeah, it's not going to work for everyone. But if you can do it, like what the ninja's going to do, if you cut off one Paula, 100 more sprout up.
100 Paula. That
Yeah,
is kind of concerning. That thought is kind of concerning.
My spine hasn't recovered yet.
What else? So I have to say, I dig everyone's design so much, except the main character. There's a reason why this game has been nicknamed, or the main character have been nicknamed Pepsi-kun and Colgate-chan, because of their hair color, which is blue and red. A very bright blue and red, may I add. Main characters design aside, I do like how I really like the redesigns for the older Fire Emblem characters that are in the game, and I also like the I guess the regular characters that you get through the game too. Even though people are saying, but you can't date them or you can't really get to know them, I don't care. Real fire, like traditional Fire Emblem is about losing the friends along the way and hopefully there's a new replacement coming forward, like real soon because you really need it. And oh my god, like
that sounds so fucking cold.
I know. Yeah.
They'll die, but you get a replacement, so don't worry about it.
I still like going on like Iron Man runs because even though I say it like that, I really don't dislike losing my characters because I do get attached to them, but not because of the character itself. It's because they are so useful in battle. But anyway, that sounded even worse. Okay, we're gonna leave
Didn't
that
help.
It didn't help at all. And though I do have to say, one of the characters that I got recently, I feel like I adopted a son because it is so tiny. The character is called Jane, and he wants to be a doctor, but he's like, but mom, dad, I could die in this war before I get to be a doctor, so why don't I learn how to fight and be a doctor at the same time? And I'm like, yeah, no holes in that law. You come into my army. I adopted a son. We must protect him because he's so small and he tries to be tough. But if you leave him alone, like in this one support conversation, he was like, oh no, I'm alone in the forest. I think I'm kind of lost. And he starts like crying, and another character appears and he's like, oh, are you crying? No, I was just kind of worried because I didn't know my way home. But who's crying? You're crying. I'm not crying. So this character tries to be like very tough, and I'm like, don't pretend you're still a kid. You act like a kid, and it's okay. And here in Chile, we would say, tenemos que protegerlo, está chiquito. He's small, so we have to protect him. So that's what I'm gonna do. Still, he's a very good character on battle. Like having 2 healers on a Fire Emblem game on your team, it is a godsend because you don't have to waste your time using the vulneraries. Like Alex said in Kingdom Battle, like you have to have your healer in the battle, or otherwise, like everything gets like kind of slow down. Or sometimes it is the only way to really heal your units and not have someone die in the process. So, and the other thing is that the healers get a couple of new tricks up their sleeves. So these ones are like healing monks, like I think that's what they're called. So they do no martial arts and they can defend themselves from melee attackers. And also they have the usual staves that they use. And there's some new staves, like one that is called obstruct, and you can obstruct for a turn the path to your units from the other army side, which is kind of neat. And also, there's this one other spell which I forgot the name of, but it helps you through Fog of War. Which, by the way, fuck Fog of War. I thought we've been over this over and over again, and we were over this in the last Fire Emblem, but no, there's always one Fog of War chapter. But you do have a couple of characters that will aid you in it. So first of all, I gave Jane the save that will allow him to see like almost normally. May I add? So Fog of War wasn't such a kick in the balls. But also you receive another character, which name I forgot because I didn't write it down here. And she is an assassin, and she also has a very good eyesight, which it's her reason for her being able to see so far into the fog, which is nice. Because that way the Fog of War isn't just a kick in the nuts, but what else? So yeah. And I got the fourth ring, which is Mikaya's, and holy crap, having an assassin being able to heal units. This is wild shit now. And she has one very special skill that if you're having a really tough time, as in your army's about to die, kind of tough time, you can just trade her almost all of her HP. It leaves her with 1 HP. And heal every single unit in your army. It doesn't have to even be in range. It just happens. It is amazing. Like, yeah, I really dig this because I'm sure there's gonna be that one map where they just throw everything at you because in every Fire Emblem there is that one map where there's more enemies that you can even count. And then I'm gonna need that spell, and it's gonna be amazing when I use it. So yeah, I'm happy so far with the tools I'm being given, with the abilities I'm being presented with.
Getting this sneaking suspicion you like this game.
I really like this game. This is where I say, no, what are you talking about? I just hate it. I just play it because I want to hate it with property. No, I really love this game.
Well, I'll be trying this out. I think probably in a week or so, because I'm once I finish Mario and Rabbids, I'm gonna run into the emblem world.
And I'm really looking forward to it because I really want to know your opinion on this one.
Probably love it.
And I gush about it so much.
What?
That's how far behind I am in the Fire Emblem situation.
You
I
what?
still need to play Awakening.
Oh, you should play Awakening. I actually think you'd like these games. I feel like they're. I don't know.
I'm sure I will. I would love to find the time, and that is the ultimate.
Because you're a big JRPG fan and stuff, so I'm just like, it seems like it's right up your alley.
Yeah,
I am.
Rick, join us.
Eventually, I might be joining you on the science adventure thing. Eventually, Paula. To be fair, I picked up the robotics notes double pack real cheap.
Yes.
You can get Steins Gate and Steins Gate 0 for free on Vita. The only thing that's holding it, this might be one for after the recording, to be fair. but the two Chaos Head games are on like a really dirty sale on Steam at the moment. But I'm not sure. There's a lot to dig into here, and I'm not really sure if that's the right version. I'm not sure.
The Steam version for the Chaos Head games is the best version because you can get them patched with the, and you won't suffer with all the deadly bugs over there.
Nice. Okay.
So
I've heard
I will
the
send.
official
I will
translation.
send the link to you.
Yeah, this is a rabbit hole that I'm going to relegate to after the recording.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Paula, you got one game left. Tell us about the game.
One game left. I can do this. The White
This has been
Door.
like a
So I have to use a
hour-long
guide
playing.
because
No, legitimately,
I have to use a
legitimately, it's been
guide.
an hour. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I have to use a guide for the White Door because at some point I forgot what I was doing, and I forgot that I was chasing a rat, which, by the way, ate my donut, and I hate it for it. The thing is dead now, so fuck it. And
Don't touch Paula's donuts.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's how that sentence right there. And the game is weird. Like, I know I've said the Rust Lake games are weird, but this one is like a new kind of weird because you're in this mental hospital and you're trying to, I guess you're trying to know why the fuck you're here in the first place, and there's this person asking you questions and you have to explore the room to answer said questions. And it seems like one of the mental hospital doctors has something up their sleeve because there's way you can fuck with the room and just have an alert, and they give you another room with like cushions, protected walls, and stuff like that. I'm at that point of the game, and I don't know. I don't like it as much as the other Rusty Lakes games.
Because this one isn't.
I'm
a
still
Rusty
enjoying
Lake game,
it.
right? This one's not a Rusty Lake game, right?
I honestly don't remember whether it legitimately ties in or not. Is it its own thing?
No,
Okay.
it is. It's its own thing. It's not related to Rusty Lake. No, it's just by the people who made it.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, like I was calling it a Rusty Lake game because of the developers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is not from the usual trilogy, or like the initial trilogy or the other
Not part of the Rusty Lake
billions
series.
of games they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 13 to 15 or so Rusty Lake games, and this just isn't one of them.
Yeah. Still, there's some callbacks and Easter eggs, I guess, to the Rusty Lake games, like people with animal mask, and obviously the masks are the animals from the first Rusty Lake game. Is it the first? I don't know which game is it.
It's okay.
They're in all the games. So, like, it is, and it is kind of weird logic wise. So it is from the Rusty Lake, but it is not a Rusty Lake game. Anyways, not much to say without like spoiling the whole thing because the story is like very. I haven't even gotten like to the end of the thing. And even if I did, I wouldn't like to spoil the ending of the thing. So I'll leave it at that. So, Rick, it is your turn, finally.
Sure thing. So I've got two games that I am playing, and I'm going to shout them out quickly, and then I'm probably going to move on. I'm still playing Daily Dadish. It is still a new Dadish level every day, and it is exactly what I want from that concept. I've paid to get rid of the ads. I feel like if I'm getting a year's worth of Dadish levels, that's fair enough. Although I would prefer just to be able to play the levels. And my hope and low-key expectation is at the end of the year, it will either then loop back around or it'll just be a case of any levels you completed on that day you get, or here are all the levels. That's my hope anyway. I am also still playing Taiko no Tatsujin, but it is the kind of game that you just dip in and out of just by virtue of being a set list of songs in a rhythm game. When I get to one of the RPG ones, it's going to be a whole different story, but this is one where I'm just jumping on for a couple of tracks and then jumping off again, which is good. What I'm probably going to do going forward is either just wipe those entirely or just keep doing I am still playing these 2 games. FF7 Remake, I am still technically playing, but because I was finishing off Valkyrie Profile, I've literally not touched it all week. That is likely to change going forward because it's now the only big game I've got on the go. Everything else really is smaller stuff. First of those is Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil. I've actually played a few levels of this one now. The story is bollocks, so I'm skipping that. The gameplay is all right. I am finding that I'm having the same problem I had with the original Klonoa, which is the devs have chosen to do this 2.5D thing, and it's kind of early PS2 in the sense that they're really pushing, how many more polygons there can be. I actually don't think it's in service of the game. I think it confuses the layout, it confuses perspective, what you can and can't be doing at certain points. It's a problem I had to a lesser extent with the first game. I'm finding it more with this one. And the core gameplay is still good. It's like every other Klonoa game with some surfing segments, it seems. And I'm not enjoying myself. But it's also not blowing my world. So it's one of those. But fun, nice proof of concept for me that my PS2 emulation is working on my phone. So that's going to enable me to do more stuff down the line. That's a nice little plus in that sense as well. I actually think as well, with me skipping the story segments, I expect this game is going to be a fair bit shorter than I originally thought it might be. Because when you look on How Long to Beat, like the main plus time is around about sort of 5.5, 6 hours. On the main page, it's saying main plus side quest is 8.5 hours. But on my profile, I've got it to give me main plus rushed times, which is saying just short of 6. I actually think, given I'm going to be skipping the story segments, it might even be a bit less than that. I'm past the first boss onto the second. I think I've been maybe playing this game for half an hour, maybe a smidge more. So I expect to barrel through this one. He says, setting himself up for a fall. I have played some Hi-Fi Rush. I like it. I don't love it. I actually think I'm a little bit cooler on this one than you are, Alex. And that's not to say it isn't good, because it is really good. It's not quite grabbed me yet. I am pretty early on. I've only just beaten the first boss. I've just left sort of the in-between level hub world thing. I've gotten my first set of upgrades.
Yeah, there's a lot more that you're gonna get a lot more stuff.
I'm hoping so. I know that there's some kind of magnet pull based on.
You don't have that
layout.
yet. Okay, then you've barely started. There's a lot more stuff. Like, just to let you, like,
I mean,
there's a lot.
You say I barely started. I've played for just over an hour.
That's barely starting this game, honestly. But I'm serious. I thought, but like, I'm still getting new shit, and I'm like about halfway through, and like I get all this new. Anyway, I'll put it this way: there's a lot more that you're going to unlock as you go along. That's going to really open up your combat stylings, because you've got this magnet. There's like this really, really intense parry system that you're going to get. That's really cool. And then there's a lot of these side character kind of stuff that you're going to get that does some really cool stuff. So they really drip feed you things, I think, appropriately, because you're having to figure out all of the timing. So I think they're like, we don't want to just like make you go insane right from the get-go with all our timing stuff. So here you go. We'll give you a little bit of time.
And I think broad brush, I get that. I think for me personally playing the game, I would have liked it to come at a slightly quicker clip.
That's fair.
But it's one of those, you got to make a game for everyone, not just for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, sadly, I know. Yeah,
what's the pity? The fundamentals are strong, and I am liking the one single huge thing that's really starting to piss me off is whenever you sort of quit out and come back in, the game keeps hiding you press select and you get the timing bar on the bottom of the screen, which with just how busy everything gets, I find quite useful to have. It just seems to not want me to have it. It's like, it's only one button press away, but no, we're going to keep taking it. And that just baffles me a little bit. Even I died once on the boss, and then when it restarted me, I had to pull the thing back up again in the same play session, which is like, why have you done that?
Oh yeah, the game wants you to learn how to not use it, because I don't use it.
Which is fine, but I'd quite like to use it. And actually, if I want to turn it off, prompt me to turn it off if you'd like, and I'll tell you no. or maybe I'll tell you yes because I'm used to it. But actually, if you're going to give me the option, don't berate me for using the option. What I have appreciated about the game is that it doesn't pull punches in terms of that combat. So you hit quite hard, but so do the enemies. And it only takes a couple of wrong moves to really shave your health down.
Are you playing on hard?
I am,
That's
which is
the
supposedly the recommended way to do it. Yeah. And I like that the tooltips on the difficulty select make that clear. It's like hard is recommended if X and Y. A couple of reviewers whose reviews I'd seen had said we played it on hard and we found that to be an appropriate level as well. So yeah,
really
hard
nice,
is where I'm at.
right? Because like the tooltips straight up say like the rhythm is all the same, but like the enemies just hit harder. And like I really like that they detailed exactly what the modifiers were for the hard difficulty. Like I don't know, that to me was like, man, I'm like, that's how you fucking do it. Like tell me exactly what I'm getting into when I select hard, right? Like it's not just like it's not just some buzzword saying like, oh, if you've played these kind of games before, you'll be fun. You know, like I hate those fucking difficulty things that you see in games where they're just like, if you play action games, and I'm like, well, maybe I do, but I don't fucking know what your action game is like.
The information you can give with that kind of thing, the better, for sure.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's early days. I know there's lots of game left to go. So far so good. I'm having a reasonably good time with it. A couple more games to go. So I'm going to jump one up a little bit earlier. So another rhythm game I'm playing, and this is the game of the month this month, Crypt of the Necrodancer, which is for anyone who's not aware, a roguelike sort of dungeon crawling game. Think Shiren the Wanderer, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. The conceit is you have to move on the beat, and this is the core difference between this and a game like Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush doesn't punish you for not doing anything on a particular beat, as long as when you do something, it is on the beat. Crypt of the Necrodancer, with a couple of notable exceptions, if you pick up certain items, you will lose your multiplier if you don't move on each and every beat. And that's the whole point of the game. It's making you make quick decisions in what is otherwise a relatively simple dungeon crawling experience, or at least so far in the first zone that I've been in. I expect it gets harder and more complex just from the little chuckle.
No, it doesn't get more complex. It just stays. It's just hard. You know what? Honestly, it's so funny. This is the absolute worst possible choice for game of the month. Like when I saw people pick that, there's nothing to fucking talk about. It's just a rhythm dungeon crawler. What the fuck are you even gonna say? Like, there's nothing to say about this game. There's no fucking story. You just play to the rhythm. It's literally about like. Anyway, I saw this get picked, and I was like, all right. Get ready for 5 posts. I played it. It was hard. I quit. Like that's what most of them are going to be. Because it's a great game. I love it. But
there's interesting mechanics. I wouldn't say there's nothing to talk about. There's different weapon choices. There's like different approaches to chucking things around.
It's just that rarely is what I think people talk about in Game of the Month. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You know what? Sure. If you can talk about that if you want. I will be surprised because I haven't seen any real discussion on this game since it came on Game of the Month. So listen, I think it's a fun game and all that. Whatever. I just thought it was really funny that this one got picked because I was like, really? Not the Zelda one? The Zelda one actually is a pretty good Game of the Month one because there's a lot to talk about in that game. But I don't know, man. This is just a weird one for me. Like, let me see.
It'd definitely be fun to get around to take overall. I think I think it's been nominated like pretty consistently for a couple of years. It's just finally like found its time to shine.
Yeah, sorry. This is so funny. I love looking at the comments. A lot of the comments are, this is great. I did 15 minutes, but I'm done.
Yeah, that's fair.
And a few more. Yeah. Oh, God, it's good. Yeah, there's not much going on for this one. There's like one page of replies.
We're on the Discord, but you're right. On the forum post, it's like 10 page. It's 10 comments, and that's it.
Yeah. Listen, it's fine. Whatever. Listen, that's the whole point of Game of the Month. You never know, man. It's up to the masses. We decide what gets picked. I
Game of the Month is like a box of chocolates.
I really thought it was funny that this one got picked because I was just like, okay, rhythm action game. That's it. Anyway, glad you're having fun though. I played this one a long time ago and I noped out after a while. Because I bothered a neighbor actually, because I was living in an apartment with like sound issues, and the game has very repetitive sound, and They were like, excuse me, do you mind turn that down? But I was like, oh shit, sorry.
Wow, what were you playing on that you were making sound problems?
Oh, it was just, I don't know. It was just on my TV, but I think I had really, really thin walls in my last place.
Okay.
And I was playing this on PS4 when I played it. So the thin walls, I think, just like bothered. Also, that person next to me was a dick. They were so fucking annoying. I heard them yelling with their fucking partner all the time, and I was like, "You're mad at my Crypt and the Necrodancer? Go fuck yourself."
Should have put your headphone. Excuse me, could you like break up a little bit more quietly, please?
I know, right? Oh, I wish they would have broken up. Jesus.
Wow.
So loud. Sorry, anyway, I just realized this is just
all of which is to say I'm
episode
enjoying Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Really? Yeah.
It is hard though, you're absolutely right. Like it's been a struggle. I've not gotten through zone 1 yet. I've gotten to the end boss once. I've been playing for maybe an hour and a half.
And you haven't played the Zelda one, right?
No, but I have it. It's on my shelf.
Nice.
I swore to myself I was only going to get a few Switch games, and I've got like, it must be 30 plus, let alone all the digital ones. You can see on my screen, you can just see the little red corner. That is about half.
Oh, I see him, yeah.
That shelf goes back beyond the other Billy bookshelf. This works great for the podcast, but you know.
Hold on, what did you just say? Billy bookshelf?
Billy bookshelf. It's IKEA furniture. It's called a Billy.
Oh, okay. That's just what it's called. Oh, okay. I was like, is this a Britishism that I don't know?
Yeah, you know, Billy. It's Cockney slang. It's not. It's IKEA.
Not. There you go. Okay. Now I understand the Billy bookshelf. Okay, now it makes sense to me now. I was just like, wait, am I missing
Billy
something?
bookshelves are a staple.
I've
literally got three,
IKEA,
so you can see they certainly are. So hang on, let me 1, 2, 3, all Billies.
Nice, lots of Billies. Awesome. Audience,
Billies, all the Billies.
You obviously couldn't see him pointing, but there are 3 Billies in his background.
You can confirm. Snopes verified. True.
Yes, I'm gonna go put that on Snopes. Sorry. We're just going off the
2
rails
more games.
entirely.
We're almost there. First of those is a Stadia refugee called Wavetale, which got ported to at least Switch, which is where I'm playing it. I assume other platforms as well. It is definitely on Steam. I imagine it's on Sony and Xbox consoles also. An interesting one. So this game, without sort of getting into the story, sees you almost like Wind Wakering it, but you're surfing on the water instead of being in a boat. The combat is not nearly as complex as a Zelda title. It's literally light attack, heavy attack, and the enemies don't really demand much from either of those. They nail the water. They nail the feeling of moving around the world. Right off the bat, you've got a glide, you've got a grappling hook sort of situation, and it all feels really, really great. There's not a lot around it. There is a story that is sort of interesting. There's a central mystery to it that to a certain extent has got my attention. But the missions are go to point X, pick up thing Y. Cool. And again, please. So it's fine on Switch because I find myself playing it while I'm sort of listening to things or as a palate cleanser thing in between other stuff. It's not fantastic, and I'm glad I waited for a sale rather than paying full whack for it. There is they nail the fundamentals. It's just they don't ask you to do too much interesting with those fundamentals so far. And then the last one, and I almost hesitate to mention it because I have only just started it, but I will just quickly sort of name check it. Like Crusader for the Genesis. This is one of the treasure games that I'm playing in my ongoing quest to try all of the treasures, at least. Maybe not beat them all, but certainly try them all. It's a late 80s, early 90s action RPG, which is to say a semi-functional action RPG where there is exactly one action, and that action is swing the sword. Looks good. It very competent for the hardware it was on, which was the Genesis. It is on my PSP Go. That's how I'm playing it. It's also how I played McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure. It's how I'll be playing a couple of the other Rare games before I sort of get later on into their catalogue. I'll have more to say on that in the future, I suppose. So that finally is all of our currently playing games. It's a good job no one
Jesus Christ,
really completed
hour and 20
anything,
minutes.
isn't
Thank God no one did. Well, let's talk. And now we got to talk about more games. Though I don't have as much to say about these ones, to be honest. So that won't be so bad.
Should we start with the least? In fact, let's start with the concept. So normally for Next Fest, we all play a bunch of games and we just talk about all the things that we've played. This time, we all, for various reasons, were quite busy. So we decided to try something a bit different. We'd each proffer one game and we'd all play the 3 games total that we'd have.
Though somebody...
I managed to work this, so...
Why don't you tell us about Overboss, Paula? Because I think you played by far the most out of the 3 of us of it.
Okay, so Overboss is a game where you have to get the highest score, trying to make your land the most dangerous. You're supposed to be like a monster trying to make this like the overworld, like having a swamp, having monsters, a castle maybe, and the idea is make it like the most dangerous possible, and that is made by the way of scoring points. So you have at your, do I go in depth? I guess we have at your left you have a bunch of rooms that you can, not rooms, sorry. I'm thinking of Post Monster because that game, game reminds me of Post Monster. That is a tabletop game that is very fun.
I got that vibe as well.
Yeah. Hey, someone else playing Post Monster. I love it. Yeah. And you have to pick, usually pick the enemy you're going to put, and the ambient or square of land is random. It is hidden until you put it down. And depending on the square of land, it is like the amount of points you score, and also it depends on what the surrounding squares of land are. For example, you get 7 points on the cloud environment or the sky environment, whatever. But you have to subtract 1 point for each different environment you have in your map. So if you have that one, you rather have either like 1 or 2 other environments, otherwise you're gonna lose a lot of points. Which, by the way, you cannot control that, as I already stated, so that kind of sucks. On the other hand, you can get very lucky and have like 4 or 5 different like forest environments, and you get more the points the more forest environments you have on your map. And also you have the monsters. So the monsters you want to match with their corresponding environments because you get 1 extra point for each time you do that. You also have the special like crystal kind of thingies, where depending of the amount of certain environment you have, you get extra points. And also you have the portals, which allow you to exchange or swap 2 monsters on 2 different environments. For example, if I have Dracula on the cloud environment and I have a harpy on a castle, I want to swap those because Dracula will give me 3 extra points in that castle. Because the castle will get 2 more points if it gets Dracula, and by the way of putting the monster in the correct environment, you get an extra point. That is a lot of but you have to do in the game. I did manage to get to
more than the
mini-boss.
game explained.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry,
I experimented quite a bit on the game this morning, so I wanted to understand exactly what I was trying to do. So yeah, it was all trial and error, and this is the fruits of my research right now. So anyone who wants to play the game and understand what the hell they are doing, you can use this as a guide.
My sincere hope is that they put a tutorial in between now and release, because I booted up the game, I noodled around for a couple of minutes, didn't really understand what was going on. It hadn't given me any particular enthusiasm to try and work out what was going on. I then went to the Steam page, and there's actually like a little bit of an explainer on some of it on the Steam page, on the store page. And that just made me angry, because it's like it would have taken almost no effort to just put a splash screen with this information on and make me just click an X button to get rid of it and start it. So I just didn't play anymore. But from what you've described and the kernel of what I'd seen between the description of the game, there's something there. Like that whole concept of like put the most points together in a tabletop-like manner. Obviously, is a thing that people like. Obviously, it's a thing that's been a success. And the Pixart was nice enough for the game. Like, they could make it work, but you have to onboard your players. And the fact that you had to spend a morning digging to get an understanding of what the game is asking you to do for that kind of game, I think is an indictment on the game, unfortunately.
Well, old man Cranky here.
Pixel
Pixel looked like RPG
No, I'm
Maker.
introducing you next week.
Game didn't fucking say anything. The game didn't tell me how to play anything. There are a trillion games that do this a million times better. This is a drop in a bucket that will vanish within 5 minutes. No one will ever remember this game existed. It will have no impact on the world. That's all my opinion on this game.
Who hurt you since we last recorded? My God.
I'm an old man now. I don't have a lot of time. I'm so busy. I only want my shit to be good. And this game is not good. It's stupid. I don't care about it. It's dumb. There was nothing to it. Like, and it wasn't fun. There's just so many better games than this out there. I was like, all right, move along.
Do you count your pick, Alex, as a better game?
Nah, I don't think it's all that much
would you like
better.
to tell us more about it?
I think the one that I picked, I don't know, maybe marginally, but I actually don't think it's all that much better. Like, I think it's like on a similar-ish level in some ways. Because, like, okay, maybe it's a little bit better, but essentially I picked Mika and the Witch's Mountain. And the reason I picked it is because Kickstarter decided that I really want to back this game. Jesus Christ, I got so many fucking ads for this thing. They clearly did a big targeted push for it. And it's like, I mean, okay, it's Kiki's delivery service. That's what it is. It's Kiki's delivery service, the game. And you're like a little witch who gets pushed off at the top of a mountain, and, you know, this other witch is trying to tell you got to get all the way back up. The writing, whoa. Horrible.
It's been to translate,
holy shit. And there's no excuse this day and age. I understand if you're a developer in a different language. Bruh. Everyone develops in a different language. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone makes games, and if someone made an English game and translated it, and it was a shite translation, that's bad too, you know? And I was just like, it was very bad translation. To the point where... It was
aggressively bad.
Yeah, it was like, because again, listen, you all know me. I teach fucking English. I don't mind when there are mistakes in some things. Whatever. I've played plenty of games that have little grammatical mistakes, and it's no big deal. This was Google Translate bad. But like Google Translate in 2010 bad. Do you know what I'm saying? Not current Google Translate, like old Google Translate bad. It was horrible. No one spoke like a person. They all had this weird shit. It doesn't control that good. Like, for a flying game, the controls weren't that great. Like,
fishing was a bit awkward.
Fishing was weird, man. I was like, ooh, this is a hard no for me. So I was glad that I tried it, because I was like, yikes. It's pretty looking. Like, I mean, some of it's like it's hand-drawn cutscenes. Those are gorgeous. Like, really beautiful. To the point where I was like, maybe you guys should just make a short film of this idea. But
again, that's already been done. It's called Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah, it's called Kiki's Delivery Service, right? Which is infinitely more charming than this. And this is charming. It's just that it's infinitely more. It has promise, right? Like, probably in the way that overboss or whatever thing could potentially have promise if they made fundamental and deep-seated changes to their game. Which is a pretty big ask. So, my thing is that, like, if you've done this, and this is not an unknown studio, they have released many games at this point. Yes, they're not some random. They are a studio. It's Chibig or whatever they're called. Chibi or something like that. It's like Chibi with a G.
Let's find out. It's Chibig. Yes.
Chibig. Yes, they have released games.
They've released a number of games, actually.
They have no motherfucking excuse. So when I get a game like this that is your demo, and then you're asking me to kickstart to finish it, I'm like, no, because this is not a great sign. I don't know.
How does that speak to the changing landscape of Kickstarter, right? Like, Kickstarter, particularly for video games that you just can't get a proper budget to on a Kickstart, it's more a marketing push.
Exactly.
And a platform to maybe find a publisher and do other things than it is actually a genuine attempt to fund a game. You know, look at like a Shenmue Kickstarter or the original projects, things like Broken Souls. That had to ask for extra money towards the end or release it in 2 parts because that was the only way they could sort of make it make sense. Or the Banner Saga, where they only did the first part and then they had to split their story in 3 to make it make sense. Sort
And
of
like
thing.
I'm fine with that, like no shade on them making a Kickstarter or anything. I don't know, man. it feels like it's like there were a lot of red flags that could be addressed, but as they stand, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna wait to hear like if they actually address these issues in their game on its release. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As a proof of concept, it is proof that this is a concept.
Actually, I didn't think it controlled terribly on the whole. I actually thought flying was reasonably okay, but I suppose that's the thing. Like, reasonably okay is a good tag for the thing as a whole.
Yes.
And there are just so many better games vying for your time. One of which, in my opinion, is the last game of my suggestion, Shady Night. Now, this is one that we have played before, but it's a solo developer, and there has been a lot of change since we played, which is why I thought it'd be worth a revisit. And I want to publicly apologize to you, Paula, because when I nominated, I didn't think about the fact that it might actually melt your brain a little bit.
Poor motion sick Paula.
It's okay.
God bless you for playing it anyway. How did you find it, first of all?
Since I didn't have a proper controller because I left mine at home, I had to use the mouse and keyboard, and it wasn't that bad. Like, I hate playing platformers with mouse and keyboard or like 3D stuff with mouse and keyboard because I tend to work it and fall a lot, which I did. I did fall a lot, but I did have a good time. I died when the enemies started appearing, like those spider thingies that I managed to kill a couple of them, but then I managed to get myself killed, and it was like, okay, still like, I'm starting to get a little dizzy, so I think this is it for me. But the game is pretty, like, it looks kind of polished, and I like that the instructions are like written in the environment, which helps a lot. And everything is like really clear, and unlike Overboss, we didn't tell you shit.
They do a lot of onboarding you for sure. It's a low bar, but they clear it.
Yeah, and I like the grappling hook. Like, it added like so much fluidity to the movement that I swear I was having fun because I was like flying over the things and just moving and jumping, and then the enemies appear and the Fire Nation appeared and everything went to shit for me.
I actually think the grappling might be new. Sorry, go on.
But yeah, very good recommendation, Rick. I really enjoyed it.
Appreciate that. This is another proof of concept for like the need for like a half like analog stick and a few shoulder buttons controller to go with a mouse. Like, that's the dream for this kind of setup. I actually prefer to play this kind of game mouse and keyboard. I think having the mouse is better than losing the analog movement. And this is a game that to play it well, again, apologies, Paula, because this is on me for putting it on you, does require you to be doing a lot of sort of quick and precise mouse movement and flicking the visuals around a lot. It's much more refined than when I played it last. There's a semblance of a story. I'm not sure if the grappling hook's new. I think it might be. I might also be making that up in my head. But everything feels a lot more refined. And you can tell that so much work's gone into this, in the 6 or so months, maybe more, since we played it last. This is one of my most anticipated games, just generally. And it's nice to see from my end that it's still on track. Interesting that they started to add a bit of a story as well, which absolutely wasn't there last time.
No, there was nothing either.
No. What did you think of this one, Alex? Because you did play it last time as well, didn't you? So you're in the same position as me.
Yeah, it's Shady Night. It's good. Like, I mean, I kind of knew what to expect, and I went in and I was like, good stuff. I did kind of. Actually, it's interesting. I felt like I was being stopped up more when I was playing this time than the last time before. When we played it the other time, I actually found it was smoother, and I was on my shittier machine. And I don't know what it was. It was just like, I don't know. There was like some things that like just felt like they weren't working the way that they did before, and that's probably just a control thing on my end. But yeah, I just felt like it was like picking up the swords and stuff sometimes just never worked. Even when I would do the slide thing to get them, sometimes it just wouldn't do it. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a combination of like
I don't know what
the
I don't know
graphics
why.
being a little bit better, and also I think I did feel like the speed of the game overall had been dialed back ever so slightly.
Yeah, which I hate that. I hate that a lot because it was
Not
so
my
good.
favorite change, no.
Yeah, it was so good in that first one. I feel like the game's actually become a little bit worse, even though it's still excellent, and I'm still very looking forward to it. I'm a little sad, and you know what? Honestly, I probably get it. Those changes are probably important for getting more people into it because it was kind of at a breakneck speed, and that could have been because we were playing Neon White at the time, I think. And so I was like, "Give me speed," you know. So look, that could just be a me thing, but give me speed, you know.
Reminds me, I need to go back to Neon White. You've got a lot of times that need beating.
That's true. Yeah. Oh man, I'll come back
And
and go back.
I've got a fancy new keyboard to do them with as well, so
Hell yeah,
it does
man.
need to happen.
It's good.
Anything anybody wants to say more about any of the 3 games that we played?
Not really. The only thing is that you just unlocked a new wish for me, which is the idea of like a nunchuck-like controller that I can have in my left hand while using a mouse. God, that'd be sick. Be so fucking
With
sick.
a few extra. My dream is like a VR style controller with one button for each of your additional 4 fingers.
Actually, yeah, just
and
use
the
the
analog
VR
stick.
controllers because they basically do have buttons for all your additional fingers on those there.
The problem you'll often find with most games is that they're set up to not recognize mouse and keyboard and controller simultaneously.
Oh yeah, which is fair. I mean, it doesn't exist yet, so.
But it needs to.
It does need to. That does seem like the smartest way to move forward. Because then you could also have an analog stick on there. Because like, let's be honest, WASD.
Best of both worlds. Yeah, for sure. It's the one. One day it shall be a thing. I wonder if it's a thing already. I wonder if we're being dense. If we are, let us know in the comments down below with a link,
Yeah, because-
ideally, so I can buy it.
Yeah.
I was thinking it shouldn't be like too difficult to like mod. Like there's a way to make a virtual controller on your computer. So in theory, you could map, let's say, a Switch Joy-Con and your mouse to that controller, and kind of make it work that way.
Yeah. And you could just map WASD to like the pushes of the analog. So it wouldn't be full analog, but you could at least move and do that. That would be a pretty nice way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, but then if it's not going to be full analog, I'd rather be at the keyboard because then I've got more buttons at my disposal. Like the trade-off I'm wanting to make is essentially lose a couple extra buttons on my left hand.
Yeah.
But
So
gain full analog movement.
Exactly, yeah. Anyway.
One last sneak peek, which by the way is like for every game that uses the control button, like the control key on your keyboard. Like I hate that so much because my hand is so small, so I literally cannot press the WASD buttons, the WASD keys, and the control button. Like I literally cannot. Like you have a Joy-Con for scale over here. My hand is small, so I literally cannot press the control key and the W key. So I was having a hard time sliding. I had to slide over like a thing, like under a thing on the game, and I couldn't do it. So I had to let go of the mouse, press the W key, and press the control key.
Oh, that's rough. To give everyone a sense of scale, Paula's hand is basically 1 and like maybe 3/4 of a Joy-Con. Tis a tiny little head.
It's not.
Anyway, well, that was Steam Next Fest. Some games and a good game. That's been changed for the worse, but that's fine. Let's jump into everybody's favorite. How long to beat the game? This week, I think is it Paula?
It's Paula.
Yes, Paula is. Yes.
It is my turn now.
Because it was me and Paula last week, and currently Paula's in the lead. Then it's Rick with 3 points. So yeah, Paula with 5, Rick with 3, me with 2. So Rick and I are pretty close.
So yeah, and this is the end of the 13 weeks. So depending on how many or few points we take, one of us could be tying with Paula, or one of us could be overtaking Paula. And actually, if we get 3 and 2, we are looking at a game week where we all scored exactly 5 points, which is fun.
Well, that could be neat.
Okay, I do have a game for you too. And I'm gonna write the game down because I'm probably gonna butcher this so badly. And it is the Caligula effect overdose.
Oh, the Caligula effect.
Oh,
right,
that
yes.
game. God, I've seen that game on sale all the time on the Switch, and I've never given a shit.
Started as a Vita game, so I by default slightly did. So Overdose is a updated version of the Vita original. It's supposed to be good, but a bit grindy, a bit paddy, as I understand it. It does look really cool.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Well, let's see. I have absolutely no idea. But I'll take a look here. Caligula effect. Caligula effect overdose. I like the title. Overdose.
Right. So what's your bonus pick for 2 extra points, Paula, as well as the 3 regular main plus 100% times worth in a single point each?
Okay, before anything, have you looked up the developers? If you haven't, I want the developers of the game.
I don't think I
the
know
developers.
who that
Fuck,
is.
I have not looked it up.
I know who the publishers are. I don't know who the developers are.
I don't know
Shit.
if I can even
no,
guess
that can't be it, Paula, because then that's one where we could potentially get 0 points.
Oh, yeah, that's a very main question.
Yeah, there's
Sorry.
no way for one of us to actually. Like, I won't get it. I promise.
This
is tactics. Paula's thinking if they don't get the extra 2 points, I can possibly guarantee a lead going into game week 2.
Okay. Let me look for some. Okay. So, so the game is has a 66% rating on HowLongToBeat.
Okay.
And I want you guys to tell me how many people have voted like the most rated score, I guess.
What do you mean? How many people have rated it a 10 out of 10?
No, like.
Or are you saying what score has been rated the highest? What score is
the most rating? Yeah, and how many people have rated that score? Thank you, Alex. You know.
Yeah.
You know how to translate my messy English at times.
Yeah, basically, which score has the most votes?
Yeah.
So you want
you said
which one is the most? And
total rating.
How many have rated it that way?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, I picked the wrong one.
Right,
okay.
my scores are in.
My scores and everything are in. Yeah.
I feel good about my times. I don't feel good about the bonus question.
I don't feel good about any of them, but I have guessed some stuff that could be accurate, and we'll see. I just did a bunch of half hours to be safe because I lost to some half hours last week. They're all half hours, yeah.
Oh, this is half-hour extravaganza right here.
Why do you do this to me, Alex?
Well, I lost to some half hours last week, so I don't want to lose again.
They weren't my half hours, were they?
Yeah, I suppose.
We'll see. So for main story, Alex has said 25.5 hours, and Rick has said 30 hours. And the winner is Alex, as the game is 26 hours long in the main story.
Nice. Okay. Yay, Alex gets a point. Alex is tied with Rick now. Alex is a good player.
Alex is speaking.
Alex is goodbye.
Alex creeping co-hosts out.
Yes.
Okay, so for main plus, Rick has said 37 hours, and Alex has said 40 hours and a half. And this time, my dear listeners, Alex has fucked himself over with the half hours because he lost a point to Rick, as the game is 38.5 hours.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Oh wow! So I was 2 hours off, and Rick was like only an hour or so off, huh?
Hour and a half, I think, if my mental maths is got that right. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's one for Rick.
So
dang it, my half hours.
For 100%, yeah, your half hours got me. But for 100%, Rick has said 75 hours, and Alex has said 75 hours and a half. And the half hours prevail, so Alex is right on the money. It is 75 hours and a half.
Yay! One ruined me, one got me, which means Rick and I are tied 4-4. That's funny.
Now,
You
who's
can't
gonna
hear
get
it,
the last
I'm
2
staring at
points?
He's
Right,
glaring
yes,
at me,
last
yeah.
2 points.
Oh, right, yeah.
How are we doing this now? Is it 1 each for the score and the number of people who scored it?
I think it would just be
For
2
2
total, right? Like whoever's closest in
Yeah.
general.
Are we doing it that way?
Yeah,
Okay.
whoever's closest in general. Because both of you have said 70% or 7 out of 10 is the most voted, which you're right, guys.
Yep.
I
Okay.
figured
Ulrich
'cause
has said
60.
30 people. And Alex said 25 people. And the winner is Alex, because it has
Ooh.
been 21 people in total who have voted
Ooh.
for 7 points.
Yeah,
That's
I thought
close.
I'd overshot
Or
that.
70%. Or
Well,
however
that
you
means
wanna
that we are extremely close now in scores wise, because I'm at 6 points, Paula's at 5, and Rick's at 4. So it's still like very much anyone's game.
For sure.
Yeah, sick. That was a good one to pick there. I just figured it's one of those big uns that's got to have lots of time. Those folks like to play their games a lot. So anyway, that's it for this week's episode of How Long to Beat. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week probably. I don't know. There's a new game plus that's gonna come out at some point. Might have already come out. Who knows? We'll see you next time.
Bye.
And Rick's not saying goodbye. Okay, goodbye.
I said see you next time.
Toodaloo.
Professional outfit I'm a part of.